I'm Scott Walker and this is Walks on the Wild Side. In today's video we're going to be capturing photos of birds in flight, and the birds that we're going to be photographing are terns. Welcome back to Walks on the Wild Side, the channel where I help you capture the beauty of nature through your camera lens. If you watched the last video, you'll remember that I was out scouting for a couple of species, and I found one of them that I was looking for, and they are the terns. So we're going to go out today and photograph some terns in flight. We'll talk about the technique for photographing birds in flight, as well as some information about terns and where to find them. So let's go. So let's talk about the technique. Terns can really vary the speed at which they fly, but I tend to find that having a shutter speed of 1/1600th of a second will do most of the time. If you notice though that they're flying particularly fast, you might want to up it a bit and perhaps go for something like 1/2000th of a second. You also want to make sure that you're in continuous autofocus for whatever that means for your camera setup. So for Sony and Nikon users, that's AFC. For Canon, it's AI Servo. And I believe for most of the others, it's a variation on AFC, so Olympus is CAF. If you don't know how to do that, look that up in your camera's manual. You also want to pick a small amount of focusing points, and this really varies depending on your camera manufacturer. So for Sony, I like to use Expand Flexible Tracking Medium. Now, this will be something that's very different on different camera setups, so do refer to your camera's manual. We want to also think about how we're going to shoot the burst of photos as the tern flies down the river. So most photographers will recommend that you use back button focus, and that's perfectly fine, but I've adapted my setup and I don't use back button focus. I have a button on the lens of the camera. And many lenses will have this, so it's just underneath the camouflage that you can see there, and it happens to be right next to the zoom ring. So as I am panning down the river, I acquire focus using that button and shoot using the traditional shutter. And the reason I don't customize one of the back buttons to be my acquire focus is that I use my thumb on the rear wheel. And I've customized the rear wheel to adjust the ISO. And I find this really useful because as I'm panning down the river, I might get to a bunch of trees or a patch of water or something that's particularly dark, and I want to change my exposure. So midway through the burst, I can just dial in some additional ISO and increase or decrease the exposure. Right, so it's started to rain, and whilst I'm not dressed for wet weather, my camera will be. So I've brought out my wet weather rain cover, which is going to keep this nice and dry, and I can carry on photographing the terns, which is perfect because I think terns become even more busy in the rain. But for now, you're going to have to go away because I haven't brought out my rain cover for my second camera. the rain got really heavy there for a while and I had to pack up and put my things away. It's just not worth the risk of wrecking my kit for a few extra photos. And I think the last few photos that I got, you can really see just how much it was raining. So much so that the photo looked desaturated. I'm hoping to go back out because the rain is slowing slightly. When I do, I'm really hoping to get some shots of terns diving, and it's a great time to try this because often when the rain stops and the cloud clears, you get really clear, crisp photos that will enable me to get a little bit of reflection on the water. And the reason for that is that the rain washes all the particles away that are in the air that cause that little bit of distortion and make things look slightly hazy. So there'll be no haze. If the clouds clear, we'll get nice clear skies and I'll be able to get some reflections. But I was really pleased with some of the shots that I got there as well. I got a few with some terns fighting in the air, so I'm hoping that at least one of those is good. And I got a really lovely burst of a tern shaking off the rain that was covering it. And on at least one of the photos, you can see it whipping its beak and the rain makes that spiral pattern as it whips the rain off its body. So I might perhaps link a few of those together and show the pattern of movement of the bird through the air. If I've done that, you'll have already seen it. So whilst we're just waiting for this rain to clear, let's talk about terns and where you can find them. And the best place is round the coastline of Britain from the months of about April through to September. So the three main types of tern that we get that visit Britain are all summer visitors. We don't really get breeding terns here. But the difficulty is they're very, very difficult to tell them apart, one species from another. So we get Arctic terns that live in the Arctic and they travel right down to the Antarctic for the winter and then they travel back to the Arctic again for the next spring. And on their way, they stop off in Britain and some other parts of Western Europe for a little holiday on the way. Why not? And those birds do something like a 22,000 mile round trip. It's one of the longest migrations that there is. And we've got the common tern, and that's what I'll have been photographing today. And the common terns tend to breed in America and Asia, and they switch over. So they'll fly from America to Asia and back again. Usually the North American terns are in Canada, but you do get some around the northeast of America, the northeast of the USA that is. And again, they come to Britain for the summer. Now the difference with common terns is they're the only terns that will come a decent distance inland. And the best places to photograph them are East Yorkshire, the East Midlands and East Anglia. That's where they tend to go, because we've got rivers that flow to the sea and have got ponds and lakes either side of them. So particularly the Trent and the Humber gets a lot of common terns. And the third type of tern that we get is a little bit rarer, and it's the roseate tern. And it's got a little slightly pink patch on its belly, but they are much lower in numbers and they only visit the coast. So if you're looking to photograph terns, get to the coast over the summer months or come to the East Midlands, particularly the River Trent or the Humber in Lincolnshire, and you will get the opportunity to photograph some common terns. So I had to wait a long time for the cloud to clear, but when it eventually did, I got some lovely shots of the birds diving over the water and their reflection in it. There's one in particular that I really liked, and normally I'm not a fan of taking photos of birds from behind. I think you have to see their face. But this one was a little bit different. The reflection in the water just got some ripples going across it, distorting it slightly, and there were some lovely colours reflecting from the setting sun. But now the clouds come back and it's the end of the day. Today has got me thinking though, because we've had some rain, would anybody find it useful to have a video with tips on taking wildlife or maybe even macro photos in the rain? If so, please make a note in the comments below, and I'm sure with the British summertime there'll be plenty of rainy days for me to make that. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so that you get notified next time I put out some content. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.